Some of you won't know this, but I actually have a master's with honours in astrophysics. While I absolutely flunked physics in school, one of the universities showed some goodwill and let me in anyway. And a few short years later, I have this to show for it. I spent years in labs, looking at data sets, desperately hoping for people to take me seriously in a field where usually you're the only woman in the room. I was very lucky that it wasn't the case for me, and there were some absolutely amazing women who were on the course with me as well. That being said, I literally once had a professor come to me and say, "Did you come up with that idea or did your male counterpart?" So the sexism is still alive and well. For a long time, I felt like romance novels either maybe weren't for me, or I felt like I wasn't represented in the ones that had the heated passion. That was until my sister handed me an Ali Hazelwood book for my birthday last year, and as you can see, I became a little bit obsessed. Suddenly, I saw my own life in a book: the imposter syndrome, the caffeine addiction, the late nights in the library, the stress, all that turned into a best-selling fantasy. With The Love Hypothesis hitting movie screens this year, we're officially in the Hazelwood era, and I'm so excited for it. Today I want to do a bit of a deep dive into these books that have taken over women in their 20s and how I think they fix the nerd trope in media, and of course my personal ranking of her books so far. I have to start with Love on the Brain. I have to be honest, this was my most recent read, so it's stuck in my noggin. However, I loved the NASA setting, felt very authentic to me. I loved the back and forth Twitter shenanigans we also had going, and the high stakes action towards the end of the book as well. Alongside that, we had some great smut, we had a conference setting, which I always love, and Levi Ward, that's a class A male lead you've got right there. Next up, we have The Love Hypothesis. This was my first one. It's nostalgic, it was a getaway drug, and it's the reason we're all here. And this is the one that's getting a movie. It's a classic for a reason. Next, I present Not in Love. I'm putting this at number 3 because I loved the merger subplot. It was very stressful, it was very authentic. I'm also a sucker for ice skating. I loved that we got more characters in this story as well, with kind of Eli's friends and colleagues, and it became a bigger world. But something I also really loved in this book is that it focused a lot on her pleasure rather than his. Moving into the smuttiest one of them all, Deep End. At least of the ones I've read so far. I love the change of scenery in this one. We had the swimming world, we had the classic like, does he like me, does me not. However, it's at 4 because I think at times I did get a little bit tired of the like, surely he doesn't see me like that, when clearly he does. And finally, we have Love Theoretically. Still one I really enjoyed, just somehow compared to all the other ones I've read, it kind of just ended up at the bottom of the list. You might notice there's a few more books in the stack. That's because there's 2 more that I need to get on with, which is Problematic Summer Romance and then Loath to Love You, which I think is like a collection of short stories. Before we dive into the entire content, for those of you who are unaware, let's quickly take a look at who Ali Hazelwood even is. Ali Hazelwood, if you hadn't caught on, is a pen name, and we actually don't know her real name. What we do know is that she's a professor in neuroscience, she's got a PhD, so that's why all of these books feel very authentic. She started as a fanfic writer on Archive of Her Own, and actually The Love Hypothesis was originally a Reylo fanfiction, Rey and Kylo Ren from Star Wars, which is why it's so funny they've casted Tom Bateman to portray Dr. Carlson in the movie, because he's married to Daisy Ridley, the actress who portrayed Rey in the Star Wars movie. She had mass engagement, and so she got snapped up by the agent straight away, and before we knew it, we had books on the shelves of Waterstones and many other stores. Once her books hit the shelves, I could say it was absolute mayhem. The Love Hypothesis debuted in 2021, and as of 2025-2026, her books have sold over 5 million copies globally. The Love Hypothesis alone has 1.5 million ratings on Goodreads, which, just to put that into context, anything over like 1 million, you're looking to be in the same stratosphere as like the Hunger Games and Harry Potter. People are eating this shit up. And alongside that, she's not just a one-hit wonder. Most of her books at this point debut in the top 5 of the New York Times paperback fiction list. So why? Why Ali Hazelwood books? What makes them so special? Most romance books focus on how people look, and while there's definitely an aspect of that in these books, it's more so focused on how people think. For the audience she's picked out for herself, there's nothing sexier than a man who's impressed and attracted by a woman's brain. On top of that, I think she knows how to pick the best, like greatest hit tropes of books. High differences, oh no, there's only one bed, does he like me, does me not, grumpy guy versus sunshine girl, forbidden romances, and she executes them absolutely perfectly. So the question remains, how did a neuroscience professor become one of the most accomplished authors in the romance books section? I think it's because she's realized something that Hollywood at times pretends like it has but actually hasn't. Intelligence is a libido booster. She sold millions of copies because she caters to a very specific phenomenon. We see it with other mass adaptations like Heated Rivalry as well, and I think there's a huge overlap in the audiences, which is women in their late 20s. We at this point don't just want a meet cute coffee shop date anymore. We want to see people who are rivals, who are brilliant at what they do, and are absolutely obsessed with each other's talent. Whether it's Shane and Ilya fighting over the Stanley Cup or B and Levi fighting over NASA funding, the draw is the same. It's the thrill of meeting your equal. I think Hazelwood's transition from a fan fiction writer to a global bestseller is proof that the female gaze has moved. We want the brains, we want the banter, and of course we want the spice. Now, to look into more of all of this, I think we also have to look at how usually nerds are portrayed in media. Take Penelope Garcia from NCIS. I absolutely loved her character. She was so cool. I loved her friendship with Derek. I loved any time she was on screen. I was like, yes, I'm locked in. That being said, I think her romances were often more showed as quirky and kind of a sideline, and we see this a lot in TV and in books. Again, if we look at Amy Fowler on The Big Bang Theory, we see the same. The joke was that she's frumpy and clinical. Her romance was the struggle for basic intimacy. We can extend this even further to characters like Mary Bennett in Pride and Prejudice, the plain bookish girl who was never the lead. Media told us you can either be a hot girl or you can be a smart girl. Choose one. Ali Hazelwood took that and set it on fire. She gave us women who are at the top of their field and have high libidos. She moved us from sweet and awkward to hot and passionate. She proved that being a genius doesn't mean you have to be sexist. And so here I also want to talk a little bit about academic shame. When I was doing my master's in astrophysics, there was this kind of unspoken rule that if you wanted to be taken seriously, your interests had to be serious too. Cue me coming in my absolute K-pop phase during university. My two best friends and me, for a minute there, also felt like we had to perform that clinical version of ourselves. But in reality, we loved being amazing at what we were doing, but we also loved cosplay. We also loved dressing up. We also loved long skirts, short skirts, pink skirts, yellow skirts, the whole shebang. But I really think it took a minute for professors to understand that just because we choose to present ourselves in a certain way doesn't lessen our smarts at all. And that's where the destigmatization comes in. For a long time, I think romance and romance books, and especially smart books, were seen as trashy or simple. But there's a really interesting concept from scholars like Dr. Catherine Larson, and they state that romance novels kind of act like a safe rehearsal space for agency. So let's think about that for a minute. For women in STEM, which are often navigating male-dominated spaces and suppressing our needs to fit into the expectations, these books kind of allow a rehearsal space for a reality where our intelligence is a turn-on, where our consent is paramount, and where our pleasure is the priority. I don't think it's escapism, I think it's aspiration. And that's why I think women in their 20s are so enamored by these book series. We're the generation that were kind of told we could have it all, only now to realize how exhausting at times having it all can be. Ali Hazelwood gives us a book where we don't have to choose between a PhD and a passionate, spicy, respectful love life. She's giving us a space to rehearse what it's like to be seen fully. Our brain, our body, and everything in between. And so I want to dive into that a little bit more and pinpoint why I think women in their 20s are so attracted to these books. I think that Ali Hazelwood books aren't just entertainment, they're like a catharsis. In our late 20s, I definitely feel like I'm going through a bit of a quarter-life crisis. And there's this transition from student to professional, or figuring out what it is you want to do in life. My imposter syndrome is at an all-time high. But through her books, it's kind of validated that I can be a messy human being while also being a genius scientist at the same time. Now, I'm not in science at the moment anymore, but I'm in cybersecurity, but the same concept applies for me. On top of that, I think I'm tired of the strong female lead who has like no flaws at all, is just perfect and unattainable. I like also seeing the vulnerable female lead who wants to be taken care of without losing her power or agency. I think a lot of the women in these books like to be taken care of, but that doesn't negate their smarts or agency in life at all. They have both. And on top of that, just the happily ever after trope is just a nice psychological safety net for me. It's a book that makes me happy to read. I know what curveballs it's gonna throw me. I know in which direction it's kind of gonna go, while still being surprised along the way without getting anxious while reading it. Now, of course, Ali Hazelwood books aren't the only surge in this type of media that we're seeing. We also see the rise of adaptations like Heated Rivalry, which in that case is a male-on-male hot romance. However, the soul of a story like that and Ali Hazelwood books is very, very similar. Both include high-stake professionals. Whether it's an NHL locker room or a NASA lab, both stories involve people who are the absolute best at what they do. Secondly, the respect factor. I think in both, the romance is built on mutual respect and fantasy. Ilya respects Shane's talent, even though they're rivals, and I think Adam respects Olive's research. And thirdly, unapologetic passion. Both series move away from the sweet fade to black moments. I mean, Heated Rivalry definitely does in the first episode. And they give the audience, which seems to be predominantly straight women in their 20s, exactly what they want. Intense, high chemistry, spicy scenes that feel earned by the emotional depth of said characters. And alongside that, I do think we're also seeing kind of a cultural shift happening. As I mentioned, there's a generation of women who are tired of the gentle romance and want the intensity and rivalry. Of course, there's a whole story here about just why Heated Rivalry itself has become so popular, and this will be a huge oversimplification, but I think it's in part because it's a story that women can engross themselves in fully and safely because it's two men. At the end of the day, whether we're talking about the icy tension in Heated Rivalry or the high-stakes laboratories of Ali Hazelwood books, the message is the same. Women are tired of being put into boxes. We're tired of the idea that we have to sacrifice our femininity for our intellect or our professional respect for a passionate romance. Ali Hazelwood's success, the 5 million copies sold worldwide, isn't just a fluke. It's a clear representation of demand. It's a generation of women in their 20s saying, I want to see myself represented both in books and on the screen. I want to see the version of myself that's a genius, a mess, and deeply desired, all at once. As someone who walked into an astrophysics lab very often in clothes that maybe people weren't expecting me to wear while at the same time getting firsts on every exam, these books started as spicy fun but have become so much more than that. They feel like a bit of a validation for the space that I was trying to occupy at the time and still am now, just in a slightly different field. At the same time, I also feel like it just allows me to just enjoy a good, hot, passionate romance smut book without feeling embarrassed about that. I feel like the books in a way have destigmatized this sense of women shouldn't talk too much about sex and pleasure in a way that isn't just, I love him so much and I'd love for him to be next to me every day, but more in the sense of he's so hot, I want him to touch me everywhere, and specifically while we're in the lab doing things that we shouldn't be doing. But of course, that's just my opinion. I also want to hear from you. If you're a woman in STEM, or if you're just someone who feels like Ali Hazelwood finally has found the perfect description of the things going on inside your brain, tell me your story in the comments below. Which book is at your number one? And how are you feeling about the movie coming up? I'm so excited. When I saw the announcement, I was like, yes, and I immediately sent it to everyone, but at the same time, I'm terrified because I don't want it to be messy. But for now, I'm going to put my faith in Lily Reinhardt and hope that she does it perfectly. If you enjoyed this slide deep dive, social commentary, just a different type of video that isn't about movies this time, let me know. And if you want, once I finish reading Problematic Summer Romance, I'm happy to come back and do a video about it. Have also thought about doing just a full video about Heated Rivalry, and it mostly just be me sat here talking about how hot it is and how much I enjoyed it. Just as a bisexual woman who hasn't really watched any man-on-man romance like that, and then on top of that, the very hot, sexy, passionate romance element of it. Until then, keep reading, keep questioning, and don't let anyone ever tell you that your lab coat isn't stylish. I'll see you in the next dimension.